It is so good to know that we serve a God who is a protector. He watches all, He watches over us, He sees all, and He knows all. And there's a saying that the world has about watching your back. But I don't worry about watching my back, I watch God. And I do the work of the Lord, and He watches over me. And as saints of God, as children of God, as Christians of God, those of us who are doing the work of the Lord, we don't have to fear those who have ill will or bad motives toward us. All we have to do is focus on doing what God has assigned for us to do. And when God has called you to do something or assigned you to do something, He will preserve you so that you can do just that and you don't have anything to worry about. As always, it's such a pleasure to be here for the Sanctuary Sunday School. Again, I want to thank everyone for all of your condolences on the loss of my mom. I thank you for bearing with me through this entire period of these last few months. I was under a lot of pressure trying to care for my mother, be a mom, and run a business, and manage the Sunday school. And through the grace of God, through your prayers, your love, and your support, I'm still here, and I thank God for that. So, I also do want to tell you, this is Wednesday night. On tomorrow night, Thursday night, I'm going to resume Thrive Thursdays. And this week, I'm going to talk about grief because that's what I'm going through. And there are a lot of people going through it. And I just want to share some tips and some ideas on how to move forward and to grieve, but also to find comfort and joy and peace and to live or thrive through it. So let's get to the lesson. This week's lesson is Saul's attempts on David's life. And this lesson is found in the book of 1 Samuel in the 19th chapter. And as we see, Saul had been plotting against David. Now, as we already know, Saul had displeased God, and God had already made the decision to remove the throne from the house of David. So, Saul had an evil spirit. He would try to kill David, and even before our lesson starts, he had plotted. He told his sons that he was going to kill David, and Saul's son Jonathan were good friends, and Jonathan had saved David's life by telling him about his father's plot to kill him. So we see here again that it says, now listen to this, it says, an evil spirits from the Lord that possessed Saul. So this is important because I'm going to backtrack, because when I talked about Saul being anointed king, God was with Saul. God anointed Saul king. It's not like He set him up for something that he was not able to do. God was with Saul. Saul did things that displeased the Lord and caused the Spirit of the Lord to leave him. And now it says there was an evil spirit from the Lord. And I wanted to stress that because it is so dangerous to play with God, to play with the work of the Lord. Don't do it, because when you start dabbling in the Spirit of God in the spiritual realm, when you're working for the Lord, you invoke attacks from the enemy anyway. So if you're playing between the devil and God, that's when you allow these evil spirits to overtake you. And once when you're working for God, the evil spirits are going to attack you anyway. But when you start playing with God, you remove the safety of God's power, and now the evil spirits can overtake you and possess you. So that is why it is so important not to play with God and not to play with the assignment that God has given you. So it says here that Saul was possessed with the evil spirit from the Lord, meaning God had taken his spirit away from Saul, because an evil spirit and the Spirit of God cannot coexist. They will not dwell in the same place. And so it says that Saul had a javelin, and a javelin is the kind of spears, those long spears that you throw. Now remember, Saul was a warrior, so he knew how to use a javelin. And it said that he threw this javelin at David, and he wanted to kill him. And David was able to escape because, again, David was a warrior as well. So he was able to elude the javelin that Saul threw at him. So he did that and he escaped. And once David escaped, Saul wasn't done. He sent assassins, messengers to David's house to sit outside and wait and say, when he comes out of that house, kill him. Now again, you have to look at this because we already talked about Jonathan, who was Saul's son, that went and told David the first time and saved his life. Now, David was also married to Saul's daughter, Michal. She was given to David when he won the battle against Goliath. So she was there, and she knew that her father wanted to kill David. So she would not let him go out of the house. Instead, he escaped out of the window. And I'm looking at this and the way that it works, because Saul's own children worked on behalf of David to allow him to escape death at the hand of Saul. This is just one illustration of how powerful God is and why we don't have to be afraid when the enemy comes against us, because the power of life and death, only God can do that. And if God says, I'm going to save you, I'm going to deliver you, I'm going to preserve you, it doesn't matter how rich or powerful your enemy is, God will find a way to make a provision for you. And we see that God saved David from Saul through Saul's own children. So Michal had him escape out of the window. And that's not all she did, because when David didn't come out of the house, Saul sent the messengers to the house and said, okay, go get him and bring him to me. And she told them that he was asleep. So they respected that, and they went back and said, okay, he's asleep. We couldn't get him. So now Saul got so tough until he told them, all right, well, you go and get his bed and bring his whole bed to me and kill him. And I love this because when you think about the fact that God used Saul's children to protect David because that was their father. They knew their father. Like me, I work with my dad. I know my dad. I can almost anticipate his every move. I can almost go do what he wants before I ask, because I'm a part of him. I have his DNA. So she said, okay. And she took pillows and she buffed up the bed so that it would look like he was in it. And they got the bed all the way to Saul before they discovered that David was not in it. And this gave David time to escape. David bought him a little time. And so now, of course, Saul is furious, and he called his daughter into question, and he reprimanded her. Why would you trick me? Why would you deceive me like that? And it says here that she told him, well, she insinuated, her answer insinuated that possibly her life was in danger, that maybe David would have killed her if she hadn't cooperated or helped him escape. That's what her answer insinuated. Now, there's a lot of speculations or different commentaries, why she did this. Maybe she did this because she knew that possibly her father would kill her. Maybe she just did this, we don't know why. But we do know, nonetheless, that she saved her husband's life. And that was through the work of the Lord. And I love the way that the subject is worded. Saul's attempt on David's life. See, the word tells us that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. It's going to form. They're going to try, but they will not succeed. Saul's attempts. There are going to be attempts. There may be an attempt on your life. There may be an attempt to attack your ministry. There may be an attempt to attack your salvation, your home, your family. I've spoken on many occasions about being under attack, but we are victorious through it all. God provided a way of escape for David, and he will do the same thing for us. God had a job for David. David was anointed by God, and God did not allow any harm to come to him, and he preserved him for the work. And I tell people all the time, we're living in such trying times, and there's so much death all around us. And inasmuch As God has allowed you the brand new mercies of another day, God has allowed you to escape the attempts and the attack of the enemy. Glorify Him, worship Him, work for Him, thank Him, and run like never before, because God has allowed you to continue and escape the attempts from the enemy.